a picture where we look like fat and stupid. You know what I mean? Unless we're actually going to write a caption where
about how we're fat and stupid, right?
Right.
Sure.
So my point is like when we want to grab people's attention, we want to put our best writing out there. We want to put our best picture out there. Not that we want people to think we're perfect, but we're playing the game of how Instagram wants us to play.
Sure.
The way you and I do it is completely different than the way we did it 5 years ago. It was much more about the story that we're telling than about grabbing people's attention. But now that they have changed these algorithms, and it's like, you know what I mean? Hey, turn on your post notifications. I'm so sick of asking people to do silly things like that when really, dude, I just want to talk to you, man. I want to have a conversation with you. I want to talk to you about your addiction. Oh, you struggle with drugs. Oh, you struggle with porn. Oh, you cheated on your girlfriend that's now your wife. Me too, man. I've been there, but it makes it so much more difficult to be able to get in their ear because I have 350,000 Instagram followers and some of my posts get 982 likes. I used to get 11,000. And so it's not that I'm like so upset that I'm not getting those impressions. It's just making the mission that you have. It's making the mission that I have so much more difficult. And there's a scripture I forget what the verse. I know the verse. The verse is, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I believe that Instagram is absolutely reprogramming people's brains to think, function, and react the way that it wants it to. And the sick part is the majority of society is spending enough time on those platforms to allow that conditioning to take place. And that's a scary thing, man.
Well, and this is why it's so important. You know, we did that. You invited me out to the Park City thing that we did with the Wim Hof method months ago. This was like right before the whole COVID stuff. So we timed that perfectly.
Like and then 3 days before.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I saw, in fact, I don't know if you know this, but when I came back from that trip, there was talks that they were going to close the Boston airport and the entire city. We were supposed to be in Southern Utah for another week. And I cut that trip short after our trip in Park City and came home because I'm like, well, we need to be able to get home. Right. If they close it down, like we got to get home. But that was a very powerful weekend for me because it wasn't riddled with Instagram and social media posts and things like that. It was like a deep connection. And I saw you doing this thing with Jesse and Mitch and some of these other guys, Humble, last week. And I said, that's exactly right. We need to get together with other men, turn off the phone, put it away, you know, and have a deep and meaningful conversation, face to face, shoulder to shoulder, working through some of these things as men. We just don't get it, especially in the light of COVID and these restrictions and masks and everything else. And it's a real shame because it's what we need as men.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you think about it, when we were little kids and we did like little sleepaway camps, remember like how nutritious, and that's, I want to be like really specific with the word that I used. Remember how nutritious that was for your spirit. You know, how when you would go and you would experience something like that, it actually fed you. When you were around other little boys that could do some of the things that you couldn't do, and maybe they could make a fire without a lighter, or maybe they could hold their breath they would go off the high diving board. The point is, it was nutritious for us. It didn't alienate us. People weren't offended that somebody could make a fire and oh, cool, teach me.
Yeah, show me.
And I believe that as we got into college and girls became important and drugs, you know, made our bodies feel good, and alcohol, different things, then we go from that phase of like kind of like brotherhood of like the reason we gathered around was to chase chicks and to party, right? But then there are families. We never go back to that nutritious part of relationship. When we do get together as adults, and I've had this phase, but it's still around like alcohol, and we might smoke a joint or whatever the case may be, but it's not about going and adventuring. It's not about jumping off a cliff. It's not about trying wakeboarding. Have you never tried wakeboarding? It's not about, it's going out and doing things that kind of scare you a little bit. But when you get around guys, like when I got around Humble can do things that I can't do. When you're around Aubrey Darkus can do a lot of things that I can't do, but it challenges me. And the same thing for you, Ryan. When I follow you on Instagram and I see the things that you're doing with your family, and I see the structure, and hear me when I say this, the structure and the order that you have implemented in the assembly line of how you are raising your children and the mission statement that you have for your family, that inspires me. That's nutritious to me. And I feel like a lot of us follow people on Instagram that aren't nutritious for us. They're actually toxic pesticides for the tree that we are. And then when we produce fruit that's not the fruit that we want, we're wondering, well, dude, where are you getting your seed from, cuz? Right?
Yeah, it's funny because, you think about how often, like, I'm on this phone and device and I'm adding people and I'm following this person and following this individual and like what this person has to say. But, when's the last time you actually went in there and said, yeah, this isn't good for me? Like, this guy's message or what he's sharing or what he's preaching, like, I don't need that. And you actually went through and you spent some time unfollowing and removing people from your sphere of influence who are, you're talking about scripture again.
That's your mental diet, man.
By their fruits you shall know thee, right? And so you see the fruits that some of these people produce, and you're consuming that toxicity, willingly consuming it, and being inundated and bombarded and living by it. Man, let me just hit the pause button on the conversation really quickly. I know you're into it, but I just got to pause. It's going to be along the same thread lines because we've been talking about living life on your own terms, and I thought it would make sense for me to tell you about this 30 Days to Battle Ready program that we have. Now, last time I checked, it was over 10,000 men have gone through this course, and it's designed to give you the tools and roadmap that you need to identify objectives and then create the perfect plan for making that roadmap a reality. This isn't a program where I tell you how to do everything and what you should be working on. You can do that by yourself. But this is a program that helps you come up with your own plan and essentially help you start living life on your own terms. So when you register for free, by the way, this is a free program, you're going to gain access to a series of emails over 30 days to help you get your life on track the way that you've always wanted it to be. And maybe you're on the path right now. Hopefully this will accelerate that. So if you're interested in registering and going through our free 30 Days to Battle Ready program, you can get registered at orderaman.com/battle ready. Again, orderaman.com/battle ready. Do that right after the conversation. For now, I'll get back to it with Steve.
One of the things, and this is like completely off topic, but I love you and I know that you encourage this. I love your show because it's conversational. But one thing that really bothers me is all of these like expert coaches that are out there making like gobs of money with like mountains of influence, and they ain't got no fruit in their life.
Yeah.
It is setting dudes up for the most ridiculous disappointment ever, because I know some of these guys that have like big followings and make lots of money coaching people because they're ridiculously good at business, but they're so unhappy. And so what ends up happening is people come to this person that is really, really good at this one thing, and they get really, really good at this one thing, but then they end up with a life exactly like that person where his marriage is strained. It's on the brink of divorce. His children, like, they know their dad, but they're scared to death to come up to their dad because their dad is so busy and their dad's time is so important. I don't ever want to be that dad, but I've been that dad before. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's how frustrating it is for you and I to understand that some of these guys that are pursuing what they're pursuing isn't going to make them happy, man. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's really frustrating because they're spending a lot of their time, and we only got a limited amount of it on this earth. And they're running a race that is going to lead them exactly where the starting line was. It's a freaking hamster wheel, man.
It takes a lot of reflection to do that, though. I was actually walking around in the field with my oldest, Brecken, who, of course, and we were walking around, and I was looking at him because he's getting big, he's leaning out, his muscles are getting developed, he's wearing my stuff, like he put on my shoes, he grabbed my hoodie. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And I remember just listening to him talk as we were just walking around the field, and I thought, dude, I only got 6 more years with you. That's not a lot of time, man. And I'm like, I could waste this time in a blink of an eye focusing too heavily on my business or trying to win people over that have no relevancy in my life, spending all my time and attention on them and investing in them versus investing where I have the most influence, which is with my wife and children. It was a very real wake-up call for me, but I think so many men are on the hamster wheel of life, like, busy, I wake up, work, somebody's telling me to do this, I got to do this, I got this task and this project, and I get home and I got to do this, and it's like, stop, time out. It's the same thing in sports, right? You guys all take a break periodically. You time out. Let's huddle up. Let's like reset here. Something is not working right. Let's come up with a plan. All right, ready, break, and we get back into it. But that's what we need in life too. We just don't do it.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of men kind of look at themselves the way I looked at myself the majority of my life. I'm 37. For 35 years of my life, I looked at myself as an instrument. Like, what can I do? What can I produce? What can I create? What can I protect? I love your slogan, protect, provide, preside. I mean, that's it. Like, that's what men, that's what we do. And so we're always looking for what can we do. And I think for me, it's a frustration because the way that God designed us to live seems counterproductive to the way that we were raised. Like, if you want to go work hard. So it doesn't make sense to have a Sabbath. It doesn't make sense to take a day off. And so men don't do that. And for 35 years, I didn't do that. But we don't give our bodies and we don't give ourselves what we need. And so we try to pour into our wife. We try to pour into other men. We try to pour into our children from an empty cup. And then when we don't do a good job, or we're irritable with our wife, or we yell at our kids, or we make a poor investing decision, we beat ourselves up about it, but we never gave ourselves what we truly needed to be able to be our best. And so I've learned a lot as a professional athlete, kind of the different parts of being your best. And for me, I needed to be my best for 3 hours every 7 days. And so I created a life that the other 6.5 days of the week, those should be built to make me perform my best on Sunday. And so I didn't pay attention, to going the extra mile. I didn't ask my wife, like, hey, how are you actually doing today? If it was during the season. And so that really kind of formed and conditioned my wife to not really bring problems to me, because, well, if it's during the season, I don't want to bring problems to Steve, because there was a few times during the season when I was younger, 24, 25 years old, where she would bring me a problem on Friday or Saturday. And maybe it would stress me out, or somebody was sick and in the hospital, and I would play poorly on Sunday. And there was actually one time where she brought something to me on Saturday. I played poorly on Sunday and I got cut on Monday. And so I didn't try to condition my wife that way, but the world conditioned my wife a certain way that, hey, don't bring problems to Steve because he's going to perform poorly, and then you're going to get fired. And so what that ended up doing was it retarded my growth from being able to be the type of man that has capacity. It singled me. It said, hey, continue to do this, and I'll take all of these different problems away. And so I really didn't start to deal with family problems year round until I was like 34 years old. And so think about how juvenile my skills were as a husband and as a father to handle real-time problems for my family, because I had been guarded for so long because I had an elite skill that produced. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. But my question is, how do you balance the need to do? Because, I mean, let's be real. We have responsibility. Right. We have bills. We have kids. We have a job. We have team members. Like, we have people that, yes, we do need to do in order to serve those individuals. So how do you balance the idea of being and doing? Because both are important.
I mean, we're after results. And I think that the shortest way I can say this is detach yourself from the results and stop looking at the scoreboard. I feel like men are constantly looking at the scoreboard. And what happens when you're playing a game? When you're playing a game and you're constantly looking at the score, you are selectively breaking your focus. We're about to go into the fourth quarter of 2000. I'm not sure when this podcast is coming out, but we're about to go into the fourth quarter of 2020 as we record this thing. 2020 has punched all of us in the face. Ryan, I know you had plans and you had events, and those things didn't happen. And the same thing for every single man that is honest. We had family vacations. We had things planned. Some of us missed funerals, weddings, lots of things. This didn't go like we had it planned. So heading into the fourth quarter, you have to ask men, if you don't feel like you're able to balance it right, which is a fallacy. Nobody's ever going to be able to balance anything. It's life mastery, if you ask me. But the point is are you going to continue to have the same offensive schematic going into this fourth quarter? Because when I was playing high school basketball, my high school basketball coach was Larry Bird's high school basketball coach. Real talk.
Are you serious?
He was he's so old, and our shorts were short enough that our nuts could have hung out of them. Man. They were so bad.
It depends on your size, though, right? You could laugh at the guys that couldn't drop out of their shorts.
It was bad, but point to this. That put me back on the tracks. We were talking about mentorship.
Yeah, and you were talking about life mastery versus